Okay, what I want to do is talk to you about the Lab Prelab and Lab Write-Up itself. It's a very important part of doing the lab, and it has to do with two main areas: safety and organization, so you get out of here in time. The labs are pretty long, so you need to be organized. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Let's jump over to the okay. This is based upon okay, it depends on what class you're in of mine, because all my classes use the same pre-lab. So I'm going to you refer to the syllabus, we'll know what each lab counts. Okay, and wet labs and dry labs count the same. Okay, so you already know all this. Okay, so pre-lab is due at the beginning of the period. That ensures me that you've read the lab, you set up a data table, you've answered any pre-lab questions, etc. It has to all be done in a composition lined or grid notebook. And you've all seen these from your other classes. They can vary anyway from $1.50 up to $80, depending on how fancy you want it, but $1.51 will suffice just fine in here. Each lab will start on a new right page, not left. We're always going to start on the right side. No pencils, indelible ink only. That's blue and black ink, not red, not blue. Although I like those colors, it's just that officially the labs are to be done in blue and black ink. All mistakes need to be readable. For example, if we had an error here, you neatly cross it off and write the correction. I'm going to give you examples of all this stuff. Now, the following sections have to be in the pre-lab write-up. Otherwise, you won't lose. Otherwise, you won't gain these free pre-lab points. These are easy points, everyone. You need to get it done. It's a lot of work, but it's not hard work, though. It's titled the lab. Purpose for what we're doing the lab. Frequently that will be given to you, sometimes not. If it's not given to you, you just read the background information, and it'll tell you basically why we're doing the lab. Now, this is really important. This next step is the first aid for each chemical used. Now, you're going to go over to a Google search on an STS space, the name of the chemical. For example, we click over here to well, I can't do this here. I'm going to exit this for a second and actually do a search. Okay, I just smacked a fly. Sorry. Okay. Let's see here. Boom. Let's get over to Google search. We're going to go STS, copper sulfate, for example. And you click on SDS, Safety Data Sheet. The Safety Data Sheet is required by all manufacturers in the United States and the world to produce this data sheet on each chemical they manufacture. Once you look at the sheet itself, it's a PDF file. If it's not a PDF file, go on to the next one. Okay, if you go to section 4, that's the first aid. So this needs to be down for if you were using copper sulfate, for example. Okay. Now, let's say you had copper sulfate and copper nitrate, which is going to have the same first aid. All you need to do is just not reproduce the second one. I don't believe in busy work. Just write down the first two chemicals with a comma between them that they're the same first aid. But you have to do first aid for each chemical. It's for your own safety. Very important. Okay. All right. So title of the lab, purpose, first aid for each chemical used, don't include water. This is all hand written out. And there should be an included data table. And that needs to be in your pre-lab as well. Now, frequently there are pre-lab questions. The pre-lab questions need to be included as far as the pre-lab. I don't think we're going to be very many graphs, but if we do a graph, I want it to be large. Okay, these are the requirements. Basically, the title of the graph, each axis of the lab or the graph labeled correctly, scaled correctly, etc. Okay, so let's look at some examples here. All right, so this is these are lab examples from other classes, from other schools. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so this lab is, the title is Oxygen Content of Air and Breath, Experiment C. Okay, notice the TRF. That means I signed off on the pre-lab. You'll have two sign-offs, one on cleanup, one on pre-lab. The left one is for cleanup, the right-hand one was for pre-lab. Notice we have title, purpose, procedure, title, purpose, first aid, data tables, materials, procedure. Okay, so I want you to write only on one side of the page because sometimes it'll bleed through. For example, I just saw an example. For example, here you can see it's starting to bleed through. Okay, so pre-lab, title, title of the lab, purpose of the lab, safety and first aid. Now in Chem 306, we have lots of chemicals that are not nice. You absolutely have to do first aid on every single one of those. Because if it gets on your skin, you need to immediately rinse it off with water. If you inhale it, if you get it in your eyes, I mean, there's all these procedures. It's really important on the first aid. Procedure, you need to handwrite. This whole thing is being written. The procedure, I want you to write it out just as if you were doing a recipe for cooking a cake, handwritten out. You'll need a data table. Frequently, the lab will have a data table suggested, and you can use that or you can modify it and use your own. Okay, sometimes there are pre-lab questions. If there are pre-lab questions, which the next lab has pre-lab questions, you need to do those. And then once all that's done, I'm going to sign off on it. And then you can proceed to finish the lab. And the lab is going to have, you actually be doing this, the lab itself, collecting data, doing post-lab questions, and then the conclusion. And then you're going to upload it, scan it, and upload it, just like you've been doing for your dry labs. Okay, so that's it on pre-labs.